when were you guys both born? Like what year?
Well, yeah, 1928.
And I was born in 1929.
Wow, that's so interesting. So, what do you remember most about the 40s?
Well, I guess that
It was,
I remember the war years
yeah.
because at that time you saved every little bit of aluminum foil. We called it tin foil at that time, and you would get just a huge ball, and that would be for the war effort. We'd have paper drives
Well,
and also
to
metal
start out
drives.
with, when the war started, there wasn't a family that didn't have somebody in the service or knew somebody that did.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so,
We'll pass this over to Caroline.
Thank you.
it was so expensive that everybody had something to do with the war.
Yeah. Just kind of going off of that, what like were your guys' feelings towards World War II? Like, did you, especially the bombing of like when we dropped the bomb on Japan and like when they attacked us? What did you guys like feel scared at all during that time, or like what were like your general feelings towards the whole war?
Well, I think everybody can remember exactly where we were.
Yeah.
And on December 7th, I was at church. We were practicing for the Christmas program.
Yeah.
And the minister came out and told us and said, "We're stopping, everybody go home."
Mhm. And how old were you guys at that time?
Oh, what year was it, Dave?
41.
I must have been-
41.
I must have been 12 years old then.
Yeah.
1940.
Mhm.
Wow. What songs or like music come to mind when you think of the 1940s? Like, were there like particular favorites that you guys had?
Rosie the Riveter was the one that always came on because of the women that were working in factories.
Well,
Music.
you talking about a particular song of the war or the period?
Just during the period, just the 1940s
Well,
in
that-
general.
Those were the years of the big bands.
Yeah, like Frank
Yeah.
Sinatra and everything like that. Anything
No.
like that?
It
No,
was before his time.
it was before him.
Miller and
Oh, Glenn Miller.
Glenn
You
Miller.
can name some of the big bands.
Tommy Dorsey
Okay.
and Glenn Miller.
I'm out of the loop there. I can't remember.
Yeah. But did you guys like the big band music?
Oh,
too?
definitely.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
wonderful. And our grandson, who is graduating from college in May, he just can't think enough of big bands.
Yeah.
He loves them.
That's so cool that it's like it carries on to today too.
Right.
Did you guys have TVs at all?
Not
Not
till
the
the 50s.
40s.
Not till the 50s.
And I bought the first one for my mother and dad.
Did you? That's so exciting. Did you listen to the radio a lot in the 40s?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
what we
there was-
had.
Mm-hmm.
We got home from school at night and turned on the radio and there was series on the radio just like there is on television.
Oh, that's so cool. Did you, like as a family, did you like to listen to like Roosevelt and when he would like come on the newscasts about what was happening? Was that like, did you all listen to that? Was that like a big thing?
I think I was too young to
Yeah.
pay much attention to that.
Mhm.
Political.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were sports very popular in the 40s?
Yes.
Do you remember like any specific sports that you enjoyed watching or maybe if you played any or anything?
Well,
Well-
baseball was big.
Yes, it was.
Babe Ruth.
Yeah, that's a sports star that you remember from the 40s?
Mm-hmm.
It's cool.
And what else, Dave?
Well,
For sport?
boxing, Joe Louis. He was a famous boxer back then.
Mm-hmm.
And
And I remember that I suppose because we didn't have television or anything, we played just tons of games outside with the neighbor kids.
Yeah,
Kick the
definitely.
can and all of that. And also, we didn't get toted around by our moms and dads. And if we wanted to go skiing, I would say it was maybe 2.5 miles or so to the White Bear Yacht Club golf course. And we would ski out there and up a huge hill to get to the golf course, and then we'd ski the golf course.
That's really cool.
And we'd ski back home.
Sounds so fun.
They skied the golf course here too.
What how do you think school was different from like then to now? Do you notice a lot of differences between the school?
I think the kids today have much more homework than we ever had.
Well, there's more to learn.
It's hard to learn. What were some of like the clothing and like hairstyles that was really popular back then?
Well, the gals, not to school, but we wore men's shirts. White
Yeah?
shirts and blue jeans, and saddle shoes were really big,
Yeah.
and then the penny loafers. And we never wore pants to school. It was always nice
Like dresses and things like
full
that.
skirts and sweaters and dresses.
And back then, of course, winter clothes, everything was wool.
Mhm.
Full coats and sweaters and shirts.
Yeah.
Because, well, there wasn't such a thing as lightweight clothing.
Yeah, definitely. What were like popular hairstyles that you remember? Like, were there certain like ways that you like to wear your hair, like either of you, or like hats or anything like that?
Well, in the earlier part of the 40s, it was braids when I was younger. And then it was just long, and I was lucky mine kind of waved.
It's good. Did boys wear like nice like pants and like jackets or anything to school, or how did? Do you remember how you dressed back then?
I would say shirts and sweaters, that was it. Yeah.
What were like, we already kind of talked about this with like the war and everything, but do you remember any of like the common like fears that you would like maybe talk like, or social like problems during that time? Like, I'm not sure, like maybe just if you ever talked about the war or any other social problems like women's roles in like society or anything like that, like women working.
I think that's probably the first that I ever remember women working.
Yeah.
Except for the younger ones.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
then,
Well, and I'm sure with all the men going off to war and everything. Yeah.
and the other thing I remember about the later, well, during the war, so many of the teachers were called. And we had a lot of substitute teachers.
Oh.
And we weren't very nice to them.
I don't think much has changed about that.
Okay.
We kind of talked about what like young people did for fun and stuff. Like you said, you played a lot of games. Did you go to the movies, or maybe if like drive-ins?
Movies were a
and
big
certain
thing,
movies?
and sports in your local school was a big thing too.
Oh, that's good. What was like the biggest sport at your school?
I think yeah,
I would say football.
basketball and
And
football
football.
were the big things. Yep.
Good. Yeah, that's basically the two pretty big ones at our school too. Did rationing for the war like affect your family at all?
Yes,
Everybody.
Rationing?
everybody. We would, the kids would have to take cream and shake it in a bottle until it turned to butter.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Wow.
We had ration stamps,
Yeah.
and I remember my folks and another couple, they would go to Wisconsin to some place where there was a cheese factory, and they sometimes would come home with a whole round thing of cheese, and I don't know how they got it without the ration stamps. But,
Well, then,
and sugar was rationed,
Yeah.
coffee.
well, just about everything was rationed. You had ration stamps,
Hmm.
from gasoline to meats and
Did
sugar and,
did rationing gas affect you guys at all? Like, did your family have cars that you used a
well,
lot?
they
or-
had, like they had A, B, and C ration stamps.
Mhm.
And the A stamp was for people who had to go from here to New Brighton to work
Mhm.
at the arms plant. And
So they got to get more gas.
so they got to get
Oh.
more gas. And, well, and then doctors, they had A stamp, and
Because of house calls.
whoever had jobs that directly affected the war or people's health, you know.
And the arms plant at New Brighton, well, that's Arden Hills today, and that's where they're thinking about the stadium.
Oh, okay. Okay. Gotcha. Were you guys friends with at all, or like, did you know any like African American families, or were there not many where you guys?
There were none in our little town.
My dad was in the fuel business,
Yeah.
and he had a coal bins downtown, and he hired the one and only African American man in Stillwater.
Wow.
Between my dad and his competitor, this man went back and forth, and he had a steady job,
Oh my goodness. That's
shoveling
crazy.
coal.
So there were like little to no African Americans in
Didn't know anybody.
Stillwater. Wow.
In fact, I'd never met one until I went in the service.
Wow. Did you? When did you go into the service?
I went in November 1940.
Really? Wow. That's.
I was drafted for the
No.
Korean War.
Not 19.
Oh, 50?
Excuse me, 1950.
That's okay. That's okay. But before then, you had never really interacted with like African American people, because I know it was like very segregated.
Right, and they just weren't in the suburbs
See?
like today.
Yeah, definitely. And what was the popular, like, did people get married very young back then? Like, what age did you guys get married at?
24?
Yeah.
So not that much younger than like now. What was like your favorite thing, like if you could bring it back today, like if maybe it's like an idea or like a concept or just something you wish would be the same as the 1940s today, what would it be?
We were kind of young. Just,
Well, you mentioned like, I know you mentioned kids not watching like TV as much or things like that, or maybe if it's like people dressing nicer like they did or something like that. Anything like that you wish kids today did
well,
like you did?
Yeah, in Stillwater, lots of people spent hours on the river.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of canoes, you know,
Yeah.
and there weren't boats flying up and down the river like
Yeah.
there are now. It was very peaceful out there.
Oh, so you wish it was more like that?
Right.
Gotcha. That's a good one. I never really thought about that because when I think of going out on the river, I think of going in like boats like that too, but
No, it was.
more peaceful.
Yep.
I'm sure it was a lot quieter because there were probably less people here and less like sort of things like that, like motorized boats and stuff.
Right.
I'm sure
and
it's
we
nice.
would come from Mahtomedi to Stillwater every Saturday night. And we would go grocery shopping, and if we needed any clothes or anything, or my dad needed work pants, they had their own stores that they
Yeah.
used, and then they had a family that had also come over from Denmark like my family did. And then we would end up there and they would play cards and I'd fall asleep on the couch as a
Oh,
little
that's
girl.
funny.
So,
Oh, well, it sounds like it was really fun.
and then we lived near White Bear Lake.
Mhm.
And so we spent all the summers down at the lake, you
Yeah.
know. And then in the wintertime, I was a caboose baby that came after they came over from Denmark. And so my two brothers and sister were older than I, and they had an ice boat. And Mom would bundle me up and I would get to go out with the older brothers on White Bear Lake with this ice boat.
An ice boat? What is that? In the wintertime?
It's got rudders and a sail and the wind whip and you go
Runners
fast.
and the sail.
On the ice?
On the
On
ice.
the ice.
Oh my goodness, I've never seen that before.
Yeah,
That's
that
really
was
cool.
really a childhood memory of mine.
That's really cool. Oh, that's pretty much it. But that was really interesting.
And school was really important to me.
Was it?
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Really.
Were there a lot of people going to like college and stuff?
Well, back then, they didn't have a lot of choices,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
It was a teacher or a nurse, and I had always wanted to be a nurse, and there were only 23 in my class.
Wow.
My kids gave me a hard time saying, oh, we can't believe there are only 23.
I know,
in
that's
that." Then when
crazy.
there were so many in their Stillwater class, oh, it must have been nice, Mom, to know everybody in the school.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. So you
Mhm.
said that you really only had a few choices. You mean like being like women in general only had like a few choices to
Right,
be?
right. If I hadn't been a nurse, I would have been a journalist, I think, because I was the editor of the school paper and I really liked that.
Oh, that's
So, but today you guys have so many more
Yeah.
opportunities
Yeah.
as far as what you choose to be. You can be anything.
Mhm. That's so cool. And for you, was going into the military like a really like honorable thing when you were